So today's conversation about Tesla's future is going to be very exciting. My guest today will not only do a deep dive into RoboTaxi, but also RoboTrucks, RoboFactories, and RoboEverything. We will explore many benefits that haven't been discussed yet about Tesla's licensing of full self-driving to other major auto manufacturers. Might Tesla even consider offering autonomy to regular gas cars, not just electric vehicles, and perhaps even used cars? And the main topic I'm most excited to learn more about is projecting Tesla's revenue based on a battery model and what's the likely Tesla stock price by 2030 based on that approach. Brian Wang is a futurist thought leader and a popular science blogger with 1 million readers per month. His blog, nextbigfuture.com, is ranked #1 science news blog. It covers many disruptive technologies and trends. Known for identifying cutting edge technologies, he helps tech companies gain funding. So, why should we listen to him? Well, he happens to be a top 1% predictor at Metaculus, an online forecasting platform on topics of global importance. Thank you, Brian. Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Great to finally be here, Herbert.
Awesome. I've been following you quite closely. You've been making some incredible long threads on Twitter that I've been following. And the one that I was most interested in, there's a few things that you make claims about that are very interesting, of course. We're going to talk about licensing of the FSD from Tesla to other auto manufacturers. You have some great ideas there. And we're also going to talk about how you see RoboTaxi being rolled out. So why don't we start with that topic first? Tell me about just in general, what was your reaction when you heard about Tesla saying that they're now in early discussions with a major auto manufacturer for licensing FSD?
Well, this is very exciting because I think it will increase the flywheel. So they have a data flywheel, and then they also will have, um, helping get them to learn and also to make more money sooner. It also opens up other markets like insurance, because if I get the data for Ford cars, for GM cars, then they would have a data advantage when they offer their insurance. So that could get that to scale where currently they only offer insurance on their own cars. The other thing would be that because they recently had Ashok, their um, um, AI lead, give a technical talk where he said that they could take YouTube videos to do driver training. That means that the camera position issue is not a limiting factor on them applying it, which I think also ties into licensing. I can
Right.
a new automaker like Ford can put the cameras where they want, and it will still work. So I think the technical side enabled the licensing side. And I think besides insurance, the a big aspect will be when they can get robo-trucking. I think robo-trucking was superior to robo-taxi in that there's more um, financial benefits to replacing the truck driver than it is to replacing the person. Plus, me the person, I could drive a Porsche. I could spend more money. I don't have to get the last saving. Yes, it's nice to go, from 70 cents a mile down to 25 cents, but for some people that's $5,000. And I enjoy my driving experience. It's not necessary. On the fleet owner truck side, I save 20, 30%, 40%, 50%. I must do it. So then, and the other big thing besides a huge impact for Tesla would be the supply chain is moving stuff around mostly by truck. We could reduce the supply chain cost from 10% for goods down to 5%, 4%, and that would be like a massive global tax cut.
Okay. Let's dive deep into each of those topics because they're very interesting. So the first thing that I wanted to set this up is Tasha Keeney, who I just did an interview with. She's an analyst with ARK Invest. And so right after Elon and the Tesla team announced that they're in discussions with a major automaker, she tweeted this out about licensing FSD. This is not surprising in the wake of failed efforts like Argo AI at Ford. Autonomy is hard. It requires vast amounts of data, and I believe many automakers will fail to achieve it on their own. Elon said this is a big deal. So, you and I know that it is a big deal. I'd love you to explain to me a little bit more about the exact steps of how this would roll out. What are the benefits? Um, so you shared this photo first. So this is what is this?
The
The hardware
hardware,
three. Go ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
hardware 3 computer chips. So that's probably at least $1,000, maybe $2,000, and then there's cameras. So Tesla's chosen to include this hardware in all their cars. So any licensee will need to um, either put that hardware into whichever brand of car that they're deciding to roll out with, or they have there has to be some kind of retrofit of an existing vehicle. So there could be delays on the FSD licensing because, unlike Tesla, which can make 1,000 changes a week on the production line, a Ford or a GM may have delays. So it's a question of which model is in the right point to add in new hardware like FSD to it. So probably a new model launch. We change the design 6 months in, and then we have that set up. Um,
Wait, so that's confusing to me because at first I thought you were the one that was saying that you can retrofit an old car and it doesn't even have to be an EV. So you're saying that Ford would need to have a new model before they release it to be able to install this hardware 3 or hardware 4 chip plus also the cameras?
so the difference there is that whether the manufacturer is ready versus whether Tesla is ready to software hardware wise to use it. Tesla would be ready to say, okay, you have a new car, we put on the cameras, a week of training, we get it adjusted, it can handle the software and hardware. So I could retrofit, say, an existing Freightliner truck with it, and then they could start, okay, now we handle Freightliner trucks. But if I'm manufacturing a production line with 200,000 vehicles per year, and I'm Ford, they have the model year thing. So when can they get it in? I'm concerned that there could be some delay on the manufacturing in a production line thing. So yes, I can put the cameras on, it'd be ready to go for Tesla within days, weeks, whatever. But um, for the mass production, there's a difference on the licensee side. So
Okay.
there could be some delays there.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So what about like what's the likelihood that they would actually um, that the automotive OEMs for electric vehicles, let's stick there, that they
Mhm,
will actually partner with Tesla. So we know that one has already in early discussions.
mhm.
What's your opinion about this?
I think that they will have to do it. That currently, many people, Gary Black, others may think, okay, we're still years away from something. But then you look at the Chuck Cook and the other stuff, and those people, home Mars, have been testing it. They're thinking, you know, next year. Some of them think there's a chance that Elon's right that it's the end of this year to be as safe as human. So, um, so I think that we are not that far away when I track it that closely. Um, there is the legislative side, so getting safe as human, and then legislation could be an issue. So the timing that I see is they roll it off beta, and they're willing to take liability for it, but they still want you to be driving the vehicle, even though it's as safe as human. But because it's as safe as human, that means it's better than half the drivers. Because as safe as the average human means that it's inferior to the better humans, but better than the inferior humans, which would be people who have higher insurance, right? Also, it's the comfort feel of it. So in this phase between um, really help you a lot, make it better, and I replace you entirely, there is a range of things happening where I feel more comfortable with it. And I'm actually safer with it. So by feeling more comfortable, it's the wife or the husband who's the passenger saying, I don't feel comfortable with this thing on, versus, oh no, this feels comfortable. It feels okay, especially compared to you driving and you suck. So then people can start turning it on. So that goes to the 1 month, 2 month free trial, where they say, okay, everyone, 80%, 90% of people who did not buy it, here, have a try. Try for 2 months, see what you think. And then you get take rates happening as that happens. And then the insurance wise, they say, okay, you pay, you're a terrible driver, you pay $500 a month or whatever or more on insurance, bundle this in. We see that you turned it on. I will, in the bundle, cut you a break, $100 a month or like that. So
Okay.
that'd be kind of rollout. And then also going into the other
Yeah.
vehicles, into like the trucks where you retrofit vehicles for fleet owners, because it's 30 million semi trucks globally, about 4 million in the United States. So those turning over that fleet as fast as you can make semis could take 20 years. So replacing those things for that benefit of replacing the drivers, making it safer for drivers, there's financial benefits which could say, oh, that's worth $20,000. That's worth $40,000.
Yeah. So do you think that Elon and Tesla would actually would approve this? So let's say that you know you're Elon and you're talking to Ford, and Ford says,
Yes.
"Yep, I want to license your FSD beta. Great, and I'm going to put it in my electric vehicles, but I'll only do it if you let me put it into my ICE cars as well."
Right.
And would Elon say yes? Because wouldn't that delay the transition?
I don't think it would delay the transition because they're um, supply constrained on it. So they're building as fast as they can anyway. And the benefit of doing that is that the more, so one, they sell them and sell it profitably. So when they sell it to Ford, if they were to need to get $5,000 or $10,000 of profit, they'll build that in and say, okay, we still make $10,000 of profit on this thing, whatever the number is, right? So that, okay, every vehicle, let's say 500,000 Ford vehicles, that profit from selling FSD is just like if we sold FSD, Tesla sold FSD. So the profit is equal or better, right? And then they now have increased their data flywheel. I go from 500,000 Tesla FSD subscribers
Mm-hmm.
to a million combined with Ford. So, and Elon knows that this is the biggest thing. Getting there faster, more data there is better. So if he can go to 2 million, 4 million vehicles, 10 million vehicles faster, that means he gets to the end goal of complete automation faster.
Okay, yeah. Safety versus
Safe.
the climate.
Right.
But you can't, yeah,
Well, they both
yeah.
happen. It's just a question. One happens first, and the fact that he'll have RoboTaxi level FSD means that he will be able to apply it to all of the EV fleet and create Tesla's EV fleet, and then the passenger miles convert faster. If he can get to RoboTaxi, he 5x the passenger miles. So the fact that
Mm.
he's using this thing to help them hobble along, and then he gets to his nirvana state faster, he still wins.
Okay,
We still
okay.
we
I
still
think
win.
I can buy that. Okay, so what's one of the things you were saying then is that you think that he's going to license it not only to the ICE cars, but that you can retrofit. And you're saying that the first thing that makes most sense is the robo trucks. Can
Right.
you? I know you mentioned it earlier already, but just dive a little more deeper on this.
So um, trucks are mainly driving on highway, so that is easier use case. The other thing is that they have things called platooning, and they've been tests in Europe and other things where they've gone across states and countries where platooning is I have a lead truck, I have a great human driver in front, and then I'm followed by 8, 10, however many other trucks, which could be the a robo truck. So then it's looking and staying behind the tailgate, following it, but it's smarter than just having a physical hitch because someone needs to get an exit. They'll okay, I'll see that car and I'll extend the gap, let them through and do stuff. So it's and also by following close behind, most of the time, I'll save energy fuel by about 30% because of air drag. So the trucking part can be far easier if you have a really solid driving system for highway and other stuff. And a truck costs $150,000 for an ICE truck. A semi might be is 250. The other competitors are at $400,000. So these are big expensive things, which would take 20 years to fully replace an EVIs. But if I say, okay, I want to get this economic benefit out there first, then I mass produce 30 million of these kits and just have the chip and the cameras. And then that 30 million times if it's 20,000, $600 million, right? So I get $600 million and I get 30 million vehicles all using this thing. And it provides supply chain benefits and all that kind of stuff. So you're bringing forward the from 2040 something to get all your semi-fleet converted to 2030, 2035.
Wow. Yeah, I'm a believer of that as well, that they'll be the trucks. And I remember a statistic that Elon had said before that one of the biggest transportation modes of transportation for goods and services or goods is trains.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you are able to do EVs autonomy for trucks, and exactly the way you described it, and if it can replace trains, this is a massive, massive business. You're going beyond the trucking business. You're eating away at the railway business, which is like I don't know what the number is, but it's massive,
So
right?
it's about for the U.S. It's about 70% of goods are transported by truck, about 20% are by rail, and then 10% air and ship. So, but for other countries, Europe, as you know, there's more trains and stuff over there. China, more trains. Then the ratio is different, and where they use rail more than we do. But it's yeah, it starts to get competitive there. And like I said, it takes out that whole 10% of goods, 10% cost of transport goods down to perhaps half or less, even potentially as much as only 20% of the cost. So it's a massive economic benefit. Plus, in terms of the climate change impact, when you get those things converted to electric, then it is of the 20% of oil that's used for transportation, for ground transportation, I think 15, 16% is truck. So you need to um, get that all
Just that,
converted,
yeah, huge.
which
Yep.
also goes to Megapack when you do that.
Can you walk me through detail the how this retrofit or how this implementation works? Right. So it's not just there's the chip and then there's the cameras, right? Don't you
Right.
need to have some sort of over the air,
Hard
Wi-Fi?
update
What
up there operating system.
updates? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so
And the
you need to
operating
have
system.
over the updates because your um, people get FSD 10 point, 11.3, 11.4. So those are over their updates. You do not want, Tesla doesn't want to have service where you have to come in to get an update like, I may have for my Subaru or something like that. You don't want that. So they will definitely have to include the Tesla OS and basic electronic spine thing for it. So they won't be able to, like, I I lobotomize my thing, or I rip it out and you only get this part. It's like it's all part of the same system. So it's I think you had a discussion with Randy discussing the fact that they would sell the OS. I don't see how they make it work if they don't sell the OS. Like you could turn stuff off in order to save some kind of like charging aspect of it, but in terms of like it needs to be in there. So you'd have to have the hardware system, which is the uh, um, FSD chips in there, and then you need to have 8 or however many cameras they have. So you have to have that installed, and it's I'm guessing in the range of $5,000, to do a retrofit.
Yeah, there's some folks that are saying that it's not just going to be licensing of FSD. It comes with the over-the-air updates, but also will now have the operating system and maybe even just like everything, like all the software. Like we heard Ford CEO saying that it takes 150 vendors that they have to work with. One, Bosch manages the the seat going forward and backwards, and you can just have one vendor. It's just so much easier because they're all integrated together. But it just makes sense, wouldn't it? That
Right.
they just
It's also
outsourced
like
everything.
Tesla doesn't want to change its back end. Like they have some master supercomputer stuff, hardware data center stuff, sending stuff out, plus the whole data gathering thing, where things are being broadcast back. They want that all to stay the same. They don't want to have a separate thing for Ford. It's like if you're doing it our way. It's just like
Yeah.
when people in IT by SAP, the software for accounting to run their business. If I do it, I'm doing it the SAP way. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it the Tesla way. So it is a Trojan horse into all these other things, which is not just the digital technical services, but it's also all the other physical services. It's like you're pretty much um, bending your knee on everything. It's like, okay, yes, I'm going your way, but from their point of view, um, they are paying suppliers anyway. It's not like they're making all this stuff themselves. So it's like if I get one better vendor, then I'm still good. So it's a bit like um, Google Android going to Samsung or something like that, where it's like you have these big ones, but I'm giving you all the smarts, I'm giving you the OS, you're selling it, but I'm giving my chunk of revenue.
Okay, that makes sense. That's why when we saw earlier Elon saying this is a big deal,
Mhm.
it's obviously a clearly big deal for many of us when we think of, here's Tesla already in early discussions with a major auto manufacturer to license FSD. So this is fantastic. It's going to, like you said, just accelerate so many things, but also just solidify uh, Tesla's position. Tell me about your thinking about Tesla's RoboTaxi. I saw in one of your articles you've written in your blog.
Mhm.
Tell me how you want to start this, but what are
So
your
this
thoughts
goes
on
to the
RoboTaxi?
cumulative miles with FSD beta. So this was at the Q2 earnings, and you can
Hmm.
see that from April, May, June that we've gone to um, about 70 million miles per month. So once they start including all the miles where FSD kind of supplants autopilot, then this should, on highway miles, because autopilot used for them on highway miles, because there's 10 billion miles or so per year of driving for autopilot. This could rapidly accelerate as that kind of folds in. And then that data growth, miles growth, if we start getting other companies involved and with ICE vehicles, then that really shoots up, which is the most critical thing in terms of like as Archimest shows, if you master RoboTaxi, RoboTruck, then that is the 10x value for the company. So the more miles there are, the sooner we get to that day where you have this step change. So that goes to what the Wall Street analysts, the Gary Blacks and stuff say, that in terms of like when when do you get it? Can others copy? And is it, as Tasha Keeney said, a winner take all, winner take most situation? And I'm in the winner take all, winner take most situation, that the data lead will be insurmountable, other things will be insurmountable, and yeah.
Yeah, we're going to cover shortly the competitors like lidar and others, and I want to ask you that question again. But for Tesla, right? He said that we're going to get to 1 billion miles, not just what we saw there. And so, what's your comment about when you saw this?
Yeah, so the Dojo goes to, you need the data and you need the compute to do it. So going to 100 exaflops, um, one of the, means that before the end of next year, you're up nearly 100 times in terms of the compute power to rapidly process and crunch. If I get billions of miles, so if I can go from 300 million 400 million miles and go up to 4 billion, 10 billion miles, then I have the ability to crunch all that data and do stuff with it. The other thing was that there was a crumb that Elon dropped where he said things, we were dumb and it was simpler than we thought.
Yeah,
So, which goes to, I think of the large language models where OpenAI was not the first to develop large language models. OpenAI was Google already had large language models. Meta already had some large language models, but OpenAI saw some papers by Baidu saying that there's a scaling law here. That if we scale the compute and the data things that we're doing, that it will just get better. And so they just made an all-in bet and said, we're going to scale the data and compute by 100,000 times. And then boom, they got in the lead, which against Google, which had more resources and more stuff, they got in the lead because they were willing to bet on scaling data and scaling compute by 100 times or 1,000 times for that. I view this, the previous slide about going to 100 exaflops, and then the other thing about going to billions of miles, as scaling data and compute. And they've been doing this thing where we have to convert everything to neural nets and blah, blah, blah. So I think that they're ready to just scale it. The simpler thing of we were dumb, we just didn't scale it. So now they have all the neural nets, the software is ready, and they are ready to do the scaling, which it goes to when exactly do they get it? But because they're going to go 100x on compute and data, that's where the thing and they're not going to stop there. If it takes 1,000 times by end of 2025, they'll be at that level. And also goes to competitors that is over $1 billion of capex, right? And another spending. So they're looking at a few $1 billion. So if someone else isn't ready with the software and willing to bet that big, then they can't keep pace.
Can you just put this to bed for sure? So so many people still think that, well, I'm already seeing Waymo and I'm seeing Cruise. They're already doing RoboTaxi in these geofenced locations. Have you not seen these RoboTaxis in China? This is not something that requires billions of miles. You don't need this. People are doing it now. And I could take Cruise can take what they're doing in Chandler, Arizona, and expand it in San Francisco. Now they can just replicate it all over the place. What's the answer to that?
So for me is that I look at the supply chain for lidar. So the last year, the world made about 200,000 lidar. There's 3 or 4 top companies. The top 3 made about 50,000 lidar units, the auto grade lidar. Half of those units go to driver assist, half go to RoboTaxi. So Apollo, which is a Baidu startup that's doing a lot of RoboTaxis in the China area, they've talked about getting to thousands and 10,000 vehicles. Waymo and Cruise each only have, depending on who you're talking about and which location, a few dozen to a few hundred vehicles, right? So if you get to Uber scale RoboTaxi, because they're selling miles, right? Uber has about 3 million drivers, right? And if RoboTaxi is 3 times more efficient, I will still need 1 million RoboTaxis, which Apollo needs 8. Apollo vehicle needs 8 lidar and a dozen, I think, millimeter wave radar. So if I only have 50,000 from my supplier, because I'm a regular automaker, I can't swap in different lidar. I can't take vendor 1, vendor 2, vendor 3. I need to have my vendor give me that thing. 50,000 means I can only make max 7,000 RoboTaxis last year. And of course, they have fewer than that because half of them went to driver assist. So that limited the number of RoboTaxis to 4,000, 3,000. And Waymo and Cruise are far lower than that number, right? Because it's like Pony. This is like 2 dozen people all sharing the same lidar. So the companies are saying, okay, we're going to increase to 500,000, maybe get to 1 million this year, next year, some time. And then Apollo saying, we're going to go to 10, 20 cities, have 10,000 vehicles per city sometime. Maybe 2030, maybe not. They haven't committed to a time on that, which is less than that 1 million to get to Uber scale. Uber scale means that at 1 million vehicles, if they're each driving 50,000 miles, it could be $50 billion. If I have to go to less than $1 a mile because I'm winning because I'm going cheaper than the $2 per mile for Uber, right? So based on that, they're selling this stuff on this per mile basis. I got to ramp up from 1 million miles a quarter. I think that Uber and Cruise are, I think only one of them have 1 million miles a quarter, and mostly unpaid. So they have to scale this up like 1,000, 10,000 times in order to do it. So one, they have to scale their lidar, and a bunch of these companies are going out of business. It's 5 or 6 main guys that have to scale to 8 million, probably 16 million units. 8 million for my RoboTaxi, 8 million for my driver assist, and this I have a dedicated vendor to do that. which means that it's at least 4 to 8 years, 4 to 8 years maximum, where it's a scenario where China went, we're going to dump $10 billion, $100 billion into this because we want to win whatever. So I think it's Hesai, Hessai, the China guys. They go with Apollo and they go big on that, which is a huge bet because they're still only driving small geofence energies. They're saying, I believe in this so much that I'm going to get 1 million cars out there, which is $50 billion, $100 billion of asset of my ante. So I'm already spending $2 to $4 billion per year, which is what Argo was doing before they went bankrupt, making virtually no money, 1 million miles or whatever a year. And then I'm going to keep ratcheting up my bet really hard over the next few years to go up to 50 billion, $100 billion. And then I'll start making Uber level of the money, which would be for 1 million vehicles over these 50, 20 cities, whatever it is. I will then start making, let's say, $50,000 per vehicle, $50 billion, right? So in 7 years, I will have bet $100 billion and then I start making money, which is like a hugely gutsy bet on something that's uncertain. So a lot of things have to fall into place to do that. One, they have to get it working, and then they have to like totally like ball of steel betting that this is gonna, no problem, $100 billion, which is more money than Ford or GM or Volkswagen, any of those guys got, which is basically like a China national government or Berlin. Someone has to say, and also be certain that it actually works, because right now you have Cruise and Waymo pissing off people in San Francisco, blocking traffic and doing all this because they have like 80 incidents a quarter off their dozens of vehicles. So you're going to say, I'm going to say, nope, 10,000 in San Francisco. Yes, our 20 vehicles are messing up your traffic and whatever stuff, but we're going to go to 10,000, not just here, but all these other places. So I do not see how that can possibly scale in less than 8 years on the hardware side, and then on the legislative side, and then on the capex side. They got to like make monster bets already beyond what they're doing.
Hey there, thank you for joining me. If you can, please consider supporting this channel so I can keep it going. It's a lot of work arranging all these amazing interviews. One of the easiest ways is just to click that join button and become a member of the channel. Thank you very much. Let's get brighter. And if they can't scale, or even if they do scale, I guess the question is, which one are you going to take if it's all based on dollar per mile? So if you're going to buy the one that's going to be cheaper, it's going to be RoboTaxi. And if you have a Tesla that is partnered with large auto OEMs, and then they're so massive, they got so many more available, they can charge cheaper because it's scale. It's the way that works, and that's why some people think that the first it will win most.
Right, and
And you might
Tesla's
have competitors.
right,
Mhm.
and Tesla's already making billions of dollars off autopilot and FSD. So they're already making that money. People are getting value from it, and then if they start making billions of dollars more from Ford, their business model is just better, right? Where they're profitable and able to start winning, as opposed to the other guy is, I must lose and lose even more money for 5 years, 8 years, and then I
Right.
start making a lot of money, which is like,
Okay. So yeah, before we get to lidar, because that is very interesting, I want to talk more about that. But what was this? Tell me more about this George Holt's
yeah,
comma
George
AI.
Hotz,
Mhm.
yeah, Common AI. So it's another company doing um, a camera-based and camera and software only based system. So they're at 6,000 active users. So they're at basically 100 times fewer users. So it's just a smaller scale system. So I see them eventually perhaps getting bought if everyone, if someone wanted to find something else other than a licensing of Tesla. But I just wanted to point them out
Yeah.
just because I'm not like ignoring what the competition is doing. I'm looking at them, and that's one of them. And
Okay.
they do
Gotcha.
far more less capable systems. Yeah. So that's a lidar.
So this is a lidar system, right? This is
Mhm.
the company you said, HASAI.
Right.
Tell me more about this. This is very interesting.
So there's
Start here.
about 100 lidar companies, but they're only selling like tiny amounts of dollar volume. Like I think the whole industry is worth about 2 billion, $3 billion. So you have three or four big guys, yeah, Innovision, Valeo, Hesai, RoboSense. So the Innovision is making about 50,000 units a year. Um, they say they can go to 300,000, toward the end of this year, next year, or at least have a factory capacity for it. And then Hesai says they're going to go to millions, if not next year, soon after that. And Hesai is one of the ones. These are mainly supplying Chinese players. But it just goes to that this industry, these guys have to go to from 50,000 units up to 20 times, 40 times as many units in order to do it. Which, if you look at all these marketing studies, they say, oh, lidar is going to grow 30-40% per year. Which then, if you're only growing 30-40% per year on the dollar volume, and then the price has to drop by 10 times. Also, that previous unit was a lidar on top, which is the 360 lidar. And they have
Mhm.
other lidar on the corners, which are like beaming out lidar. So there's, for the units, it's like I need the 360, and then I need the other units. So it's like different flavors of lidar that are happening. So it's a very complicated thing. So it's not just they're all making the one thing. I get to put them anywhere. I gotta have the exact right unit.
Yeah. So isn't the game already over? Like these, I think the article you sent me said that there's currently 25 lidar companies, and they're just collapsing. Many companies were formed through SPACs, and they're dying. They're being
Right.
bought out. They're just bankrupts. And then the story with lidar is true, isn't it? Where they were lidar based approach to robotaxi happened decades ago, a decade and a half ago, and that was the leading edge technology at the time. And then vision happened. This large the ability to do machine learning came out, and then they realized I can just do vision only, just cameras alone. We don't need the lidars. And then because Tesla happened to come in at the right time and did not choose lidar. Now all the many lidar CEOs who leave, they come back and they start a new company which is vision only because they realized that was the old tech. And then the reason why this push on lidar is because they've already invested so much in it. They're already so deep into it. They just want to carry it forward. There's no way for them to pivot at this point. So there's that storyline. Um, but it's pretty well over, right? Because if a vision only is proven to work, then what's the point of doing lidar, and what's happening to the price point? The whole point is that the lidar price is supposed to go down. Anyway, it probably doesn't even matter at this point, right? Whether it's lidar or vision, what matters is who can create compelling robotaxi.
Right.
So if you had lidar, do you still not need the billions of miles, and don't you still need the supercomputer?
I think you still need the billion of miles. The benefit of lidar is that for the cases where I'm going to run into something, where the camera somehow didn't see it or misinterpreted it, I have a system that says, collision warning is this the thing that's coming in. So then I can avoid the worst case. So I still need the camera thing to drive me around, but I have this other safety net. It's like
Yeah.
a trapeze artist. I have this thing. I still want to just walk across the rope, but if I fall over, I caught in the safety net, so it prevents me from having a really bad accident.
Yeah.
That's the
Okay.
thinking for that. But the thing is that if I don't fall off, then I don't need the safety net. And if I have other systems that get the same result, then it's extra cost and expense. And then Elon said, if I have really good cameras and AI, and it's telling me one thing, and this one warning system is telling
Right.
me something else,
What
which
do you
do
do?
I listen to?
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a problem. And then most recently, Ashok Alaswamy, director of autopilot for Tesla, showed in his presentation that with just vision only, they have incredible. They've improved on occupancy network, which is the ability to know whether something is occupied or not using vision only cameras. But it's so smart that it was able to determine that fog is something you can drive through, and paper flying through is something you can drive through because you've attached this neural net machine learning thing with on top of the vision, and they were able to figure that out. So
Right.
right, Tesla's
Right.
got a solution for this and solved it. Yeah.
Mhm. And they when they took out the one sensor that they did have, it took them a few months of retraining, 6 months of
UCC.
retraining,
Yeah.
yeah, to get to the point where they handle it. So with the fast training, they could, if they turned out, okay, we need 3D radar or something like that, they could put that back in, and with 100 exaflop Dojo or Texaflop Dojo, they could retrain it in a month. So the ability for Tesla to pivot and add and adjust things is also something where they're not locked in. Someone else is, I put the hardware, I must do the hardware. If it doesn't change, I can't update it. Tesla can continue to adjust and improve, which also goes to, you know, 4 times, as safe as humans, 4 times better than human, 10 times better than human. That can happen in my same car, you know, because my
Gotcha.
top end is maybe hardware 4, hardware 5, and then I go up to 100x. But I'm not limited by the sensors. I'm not limited by other things. So that goes to, I drive it this year, but then next year it's better because I updated it.
Okay. So we talked RoboTaxi, we talked RoboTrucks, we talked about licensing of FSD. Tell me about bots and RoboFactories.
Right. So that also goes to what Ashok was saying, that um, you can use video, which I think means that they're merging the Tesla bot and the FSD software, so that
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what vehicle it is. If it can be a robot with cameras just like a human, or it can be
Yeah.
a rolling vehicle. So that, and there also were, there's 5 or 10 units in the factories, and they designed the Giga Mexico to be, with unbox process, which is robot friendly. So a lot of what they're doing, as Joe Justice talked about with digital self management, is to be automation robot ready. So if they can get, like imagine 50% of the tasks in a factory able to use a bot instead of a human, because of the work spaces, they have hexagons in there, and I have 5 different groups doing paint or doing HVAC. One of them can be, or 1 or 2 could be Tesla bot ones, and then when those are better, then they take over, and then all 5 units go to Tesla bot. So they're ready to adopt it at their systems, and that will increase their production of that. So they only have 100,000 or so employees in the factory. They can, just making 100,000 units of the Tesla bot would let them get to this doubling of labor capacity, which means that they
Mhm.
could open new shifts in Mexico, open new shifts in some other new factory in India or Indonesia, whatever, and they could scale production faster and also increase the rate of production. So that'd be the near term, and they can get to 90%, 100%, and then just get them faster and faster. So it would get to a monetary benefit sooner. And the other thing would be that Tesla bots for um, people and other things would be something that could happen in parallel or sooner than the FSD. If FSD could be delayed by regulation, Tesla bot
Exactly. That's what I've been
would not
saying.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And he's clarified that it's going to be out there next year. So
Mhm.
tell me what this is. Tesla bot replacing labor. You did some napkin math here.
Right. So this is modifying a ARK Invest analysis of RoboTaxi, where basically as you drop the cost, then the volume of miles driven. Here I drop the cost per hour, and the total addressable hours increases. So that goes to what I'm discussing, the billion hours for a 500,000 worker equivalent for Tesla factory productivity boost, which is the step one I was talking about, where you're taking away dangerous work, you're doing just work within a Tesla factory. And then as the cost of the robot goes from, say, 20,000 to 40,000 down to 10,000, and they can work
Mhm.
8,000 hours in a year, you start getting down to, um, $10 per hour, $5 per hour, as you get to um, $1 per hour for an $8,000 Tesla bot working 8,000 hours. Then you get
Mhm.
to $1 per hour. So then I'm saying that would mean 8 trillion hours worth of work. So it's not inconceivable. $8,000 for a Tesla bot in mass production, that makes sense. So then that goes to replacing the entire world's, productivity. So, and then after you get cheaper and cheaper, the cost of electricity starts to factor in to it. But so basically, that goes to how I see that there's a need for billions of bots, and that it will, utterly. the transformation will be huge. I view it kind of like we go into a kind of Star Wars world where everyone has a droid, where everyone's Luke
Yeah.
Skywalker and has like C-3PO
Yeah.
and R2-D2 and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
Exciting. This is
and
fun. Basic.
one
Yeah.
one thing is that the use case for a Tesla bot is basically the next level of iPhone because the Tesla bot has 200 times, it has 3,000 watts. Our phone has like 10, 11 watts. So it has 200, 300 times that, which also means the chip uses energy. It can have, 300 times the energy, 300 times the compute. So for large language model AI stuff, intensive things, I could put more into that thing. And then the fact that it's bigger, it's walking around by itself. I can have it, I can talk to it. So it's the capability on that thing would get very, very useful very fast.
A walking supercomputer.
Yeah.
Yeah. A genius. AGI. Okay, let's talk batteries. I want to hear more about your battery model, which is so exciting, and your
Mm.
Tesla 230 price target. So
Okay.
tell me more about this.
So this is the first 5 months of this year, which is they up to 5 months they installed about 230 gigawatt hours of batteries. CATL has 36% of it. So just projecting forward into the half month, we're just shy of 300 gigawatt hours of batteries. So CATL installed a little over 100 gigawatt hours of batteries in the first 6 months. Um, BYD is at about 48 gigawatt hours of batteries for the first half. So they'll go to about 100 gigawatt hours for the year. So BYD is pretty much using all their own batteries, not selling to that many to other people. CATL, about um, 50, 60% of their batteries are going to Tesla. Tesla used about just shy of 70 gigawatt hours of batteries for their vehicles in the first half of the year. And then LG and stuff like that. So Tesla, um, by making about 3 gigawatt hours batteries um, from Texas and Cato Road for 4680s, is using about 40%, is supplying 4% of their own batteries. But the reason that the batteries are important is that I factored in how much revenue do you get from 100 gigawatt hours of batteries, depending upon the product
Yeah,
that you're selling,
let's take a look at this.
right?
Okay.
So we could start off with $20,000 in price. So you can, it's a simple calculation. So you can adjust it. If it's 25K, then I need 4 million Gen 3 cars to get to $100 billion. So this is based on $100 billion. And I look at how many batteries I'm using. So this is a $100 billion unit, which is about where we're at now because we just had just shy of $25 billion for the quarter. So that is um, run rate near 2 million Model Ys and 3s. And then we also have some X and S's. So we're just shy of that for our first $100 billion unit. So if we were to develop these other lines, then we can equal our current um, business by making 5 million Gen 3 cars, 400,000
Mhm.
semis, 1.25 million CyberTruck if those first units are $8,000. And then I did some how many batteries I need. So you can see that the Gen 3 car, if it's at 50 kilowatt hours, it's more battery intensive than a Cybertruck with 100 kilowatt hours, or more intensive than a Model Y, Model 3, needing 187 gigawatt hours total. So it's just a way to kind of like have a how much of the current company does
Yeah,
do I get from these other things? And you can see that Megapack, 40K Megapacks, which is the production level of Lathrop, I can get to that $100 billion just by
just
selling
with
out
the 40.
just with the Lathrop
Yeah.
battery packs.
Yeah. So okay. Thank you for putting this together, by the way. This
Yeah,
is just eye-opening because right now all we're offering is this, the Model Y,
yeah,
Model 3 at
mhm,
2.5 million cars,
yeah,
and that gets us to about $100 billion run rate.
yeah,
But when every single one of these, and they're all very, very like uh achievable.
mhm,
When you said 400,000 semis or 1.25 million Cybertrucks or
yeah,
5 million third gen 2 million Cybervans. And then you're saying, look at this Lathrop.
Actually,
One
I made
megapack.
the lathe is 10K, so I made a mistake there. I misspoke. It's
You need
40K,
four
so
lathe ropes.
four lathe ropes. But still,
I thought it was 20K. I think they're 10K now, but okay.
yeah,
Um,
I think
hmm.
it's 10K. It's
Oh,
40 gigawatt hours, but it's 10K units because each one is
okay,
almost
gotcha,
4
gotcha.
gig. Yeah, sorry for that
Okay,
mistake there.
so it's very achievable, all of this, and all of a sudden you've got a company that's gone from 100 billion run rate to one,
600
two,
billion.
three, four, six times that. Okay, so this is the way you did it, just going, hey, if that's the case, this is how many batteries we will need, gigawatt per hour batteries,
Yep.
and then so then you said, okay, what's
So
that?
look at the dollars per megawatt hour, and then
Yeah.
just taking those things, just dividing it out. The Cybertruck, I will see eventually will drop down because it'll go to a more high volume price, and I believe that all these numbers, but ballparking, I can say okay, roughly $300 to $800, uh, sorry, 30 to $80 billion for 100 gigawatt hours. So yes, it's $400 to $800 per megawatt hour, but if I use the 100 gigawatt hour unit of like um, a significant development of it, you can use these kind of things to kind of factor in based on how many batteries I have, how I would devote it to the different product lines.
All right, I'm confused. I don't know what this is.
So
What is
so
it?
sorry. So basically, I took the revenue number and divided the gigawatt hours. On the previous slide,
So, yeah. So you're saying that Cybertruck is actually going to be the most profitable? Like,
if you for the first units which come in at $80,000.
yeah, gotcha,
So
gotcha.
so if I have eighty
Okay,
thousand dollars, then yeah.
okay. And then what's next?
This is where I adjust the prices. People, Gary Black says, "How do I introduce new products? How do I introduce new things?" And basically, is I cut prices. So then, if I cut prices, then I'm able to address new markets because if I have a $30,000 Model Y, I'm going to sell a lot more than just say 2 million this year. 2 million this year is at $40 to $45,000 for my Model Y or 50,000 for Model Y. If I drop it down to 30,000,
Oh yeah,
then
you sell
it
three,
makes
four
sense I
million
could
of them.
sell
Sure,
more, right?
sure.
And it wouldn't be. I just kept it at the same $100 billion, but I could say maybe I could sell $200 billion of these things. It'd be 6.6 million. I just
Yeah.
have an easily um, unit for me to think
Hmm.
about how many would I need if I drop the price, and then I would then multiply it out for the end state. Whereas like if I cut my prices enough, maybe I can sell nearly 40 million vehicles, which I think is the next slide.
You're saying 40 million. People can't even imagine 20 million.
Right, but I
Okay,
think it's based on cutting prices. That
of course,
yeah, that if I cut the prices, I can
I
sell
agree.
more. Yeah. So
Okay,
then
I
my
agree, man.
dollars per megawatt hour decreases. I cut prices. Megapack actually probably should go to like 500 or 400, but then I cut the prices on things. I'm still making for every 100 gigawatts hours of batteries that I have. I'm still making 30 billion to $50 billion, but then I can get to a bigger final number, which is the next slide, where Tesla units is 37 million, right? So I'm saying if I cut the price to 15K, I can probably sell 42 million of them, right? Or the full market 42 million. I get 40% of that. I get 16 million units, right? So I sell 16 million units in the Tesla unit number. Semis, I think they can dominate that with 80% of the market, just like they dominate the United States with 60%. And that'd be 2.4 million units per year. Um, and then the whole overall market share, because the market share market by year, those are the numbers from the master plan 3. And then I'm my putting in the market share to say how much you get, and then you do again with price.
Yeah, but
um,
Master Plan 3 was never positioned as Tesla will be the only car. Like, so
right, no,
to say
I'm
that
not
you
saying,
can have, yeah,
yeah, so 40%
to
I'm
say
saying
that
there.
you can have a third gen car selling 42 million per year, that's crazy.
No, 42 million is the total market. I'm saying 16
Yes.
million Tesla share. And
Okay.
maybe you can say, okay, I want to
Okay,
adjust this.
gotcha.
I want to adjust this
Yeah.
only 20% share, which is their
Okay.
current share. Then it's
Yes.
8 million units. So I can
Yeah.
adjust this quickly to say, okay, and we only get 20% in the 8 million.
Yes.
Semi
Okay.
drops to
Adjust.
50%. I go
Yeah.
to 1.5 million. And this is probably not 2030, probably 2035 or something. But I just
Yeah.
want to and then I would go with some factory costs again from Master Plan 3. So I took some of that. So the share, I can adjust it. I put my stab. Certainly, this is a bull case, but then I can cut back to what it is.
Yeah,
It
you
also
need to cut
shows
this
that,
back.
yeah, it also shows that the total batteries that Tesla needs, or the
Yeah.
amount of factories and stuff, is that the value that they get out of this thing is not necessarily third gen car dominated. That I could make more money from semi truck if I dominate that than if I dominate the third gen car. I get more units, but I don't make as much money. Same thing for Cybertruck. If I have 40K
So
Cybertrucks, I'm
based
selling
on this
500.
analysis, if you were running Tesla and you had limited batteries, would you not put it all in mega packs?
Yeah, I would probably try and run it into mega packs. If the utilities are buying them, I would try and run more into mega packs. But yeah, maybe also it shows that a hugely successful Cybertruck, which is beyond what Elon said. But for me, I'm looking at it and I'm like, who is a competitor that's going to make a million trucks, EV trucks, Rivian or Ford Lightning? They would need 150 gigawatt hours of batteries to do that 1 million. So if you're going to take serious market share from Tesla, you got to have a crap load of batteries, and you also have to have huge factories. So that is another part of my analysis, is that if you don't have the batteries at hundreds of gigawatt scale, or 200, if you don't have 300 gigawatt of batteries, I cannot make 1.5 million trucks or whatever.
Yeah, okay. This is crazy. But okay, so what we're saying here is that currently today, Model Y, Model 3 is at $100 billion run rate per year. And if you add this all up, you can see a potential future where it's $2.4 trillion of revenue per year.
Right.
And of course, the market share is massively, it's just crazy here. So you're saying that,
It cut
we
back
pretty well need to
half it.
produce,
Yeah.
you need to produce 37 million cars
Yeah.
per year, which is
Right.
80 million. That's 40%.
Right.
It's very possible because there's such an amazing leader, but people can't even imagine. They can't
So if
even
you
imagine 20, let alone 40. So,
mhm. So you cut it in
yeah,
half, it's
yeah,
1.2 trillion in revenue. It's closer to it's like 19 million units.
exactly. That's your point. That's your point.
Yeah.
Let's cut all this in half. So let's say it's 20 million per year,
Yeah.
not 37.
Mhm.
And now you're getting to 1.2 trillion.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for saying that. You should have started with that.
Okay.
Uh,
Sorry.
okay. And then,
Yeah.
so what is your, so then this is the Tesla Semi. Just tell
Yeah,
me a little
just
bit
where
more
I
about
went
what it looks like.
into super fine detail and compared every other unit. I did stuff like in terms of the weight. I was measuring the pixels on how big the thing was. Anyway, so this is how the point of whole this thing is that, based on detailed analysis, the Tesla semi trucks are superior to the competing EV trucks, as the Model 3 in 2017 was to the Nissan Leaf. So that's my case for the dominance, is that
Yeah.
they're
It's
just like,
dominant. Yeah.
yeah.
There's no other Semi out there that could even compete. And
Mhm.
does this include the electric vehicle ones? Or
This
these
is
are
all
the
these
EV?
are all the electric EVs by different makers.
Gotcha. Okay.
Freightliner, Volvo,
All right.
BYD. Yeah.
All right. So then that's that. So what is your price target then? That's what I'm most interested in. Do you consider yourself an Uber bull? Where do you fall?
Yeah, so I am Uber bull, but like I try and correct myself where, like, I got things wrong because last year, something like that, because I saw the impact of the key hit to the China stuff, and China was where they're getting a lot of their outperformance from. So I missed that aspect of things. So I don't want to, and then they've been having issues on execution where I thought they would execute better. So there are things where Tesla's not perfect. There is things where they can fail and slow up, but the my analysis shows that there's this huge value for things like Megapack, which I think when they open the China factory, these things are only the size of a Target. Literally, they converted a
Yeah.
Target store to make Lathrop. China can make a whole shopping mall in like a couple of months, so they can make
Yeah.
a version of Lathrop very fast. And then the other thing is that they can recognize revenue faster, because they can send a bunch of Megapack on a barge up the river, and then dump them to their existing 400 gigawatts of solar and install that quickly. So they can like turn it on like this versus PG&E taking 6 months, 9 months to turn it on. So that is something that I can see being a huge impact sooner. And then the licensing and the FSD adoption rate curves with the bonus and stuff like that, I can see those things happening sooner. So, so then in terms of the getting to a price target, based on those $100 billion analysis, I think getting to that half to 1/3 of the 40 million vehicles, where we miss the 20 million target and then we get to 15 million, which would say be one third or whatever that, then that's still instead of 2.4, it's like $800 billion. So $800 billion with 20% margin, something like that, which doesn't include the software, right? So if I have 50% for software, then it's still so hardware only, we're looking at $150 billion worth of profit. So a 30x multiple, you look at 4.5 trillion. And then a multiplier would be all the software and FSD, which would be like 3 times that. So, 4.5 trillion hardware only 2030. And then with
That's the stock
FSD,
price.
then we're looking at 10 to 15 trillion on that. But then the cap, ultimately, the end state point is, well, even bigger, because I get to the billion, the Tesla bots, and then that goes to, transforming society kind of thing.
This is crazy. That's the
Yeah,
stock price.
yeah, that's right.
We're at $300
That's right. We're $3 now.
per.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. You're
But
definitely an Uber bull. Yeah.
yeah, and basically though, it's when do the key things happen? When do we go next level? Because I look at the 4680s, they can get to 100 gigawatt hours of 4680s by middle of next year, because if we would have this slow ramp, which John at Clean has been showing, but if we got to 1 gigawatt hour, 10 million cells in a quarter, when we get to 50, 60 million cells, that is the 25 gigawatt hours per quarter, which is 100 gigawatt hours, sorry, 25 gigawatt hours per year. So that's 6 gigawatts per quarter for one line. They are building the other lines. They just turn on the other lines, ramp them. So you start doing that, Q3, where you start ramping the 3 other Texas lines. You start ramping the Berlin line, and then suddenly I have 8 or 10 lines, maybe even 20 lines running in the middle of next year, and they all have ramped to near 25 gigawatt hours per year. So that unlocks the ability to make all the products that we're talking about, 100 gigawatt hours of batteries to make products for those things. And then the FSD with the uh, FSD with 100 exaflop Dojo and with all the data, that gets unlocked. So that becomes the multiplier. So if you look back many years ago, BYD was first with EVs. They had all the other vehicles, but they were first with EVs. They had more volume until Tesla came in with the Model 3. So Tesla passed them, went next level, Model 3, Model Y, went next level. And that's because they haven't gone to next level with 4680s and with FSD, that they haven't like pulled away. But BYD is doing it with 600,000 employees. They're
Yeah.
they're doing it with this labor intensive thing, which doesn't, they can't go to 10 million employees or something. When Tesla goes 10x, then they fall behind, just like they did when Model 3, Model Y comes up. So because Tesla can go technologically to this other place, then the other guys, that's when they fall behind. And that's where the whole only a block company falls apart.
Yeah. It is so exciting. I do see the exponential innovation that Tesla is doing. And what you're pointing out, the more people I talk to who are futurists, they always point out that the legacy technology, the incumbent technology, it falls through an exponential curve that way as well. It almost always it's like, you can name so many examples of what this has happened. So people are completely underestimating when they think that ICE cars will still be around in 2030. You
Mhm.
know, a person I interviewed recently said that it's going to be still 60% ICE cars, 40%. That's just not going to be the case. Just like,
Mhm.
do you still see 60% of VCR tapes?
No,
Oh,
no.
everything's now streaming, right?
Right, it was just like the
Like,
shift, iPhone gets introduced 2008 or whatever, and then 2012, 2013 is when it just disappeared, where basically
it's
Nokia tried to limp
yeah, there's
along,
no
and then they fall below, the volume they need to keep going, and then they just implode. They go
yeah,
from like 30 to nothing.
yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. Okay. Thank you so much, Brian. I really appreciate you. This is Brian Wang. He's Next Big Futures. You should check him out on his website. It's an incredible blog. I mean, you write so many articles on all sorts of different disruptive technologies. You've won so many awards,
Mhm.
and
Thank
and
you.
and you are a futurist that have proven to be true because you're 1% top predictor.
Mhm.
So I hope you are right on this call. Check out
Mhm.
his website at Next Big Future. Check out his Twitter at Next Big Future. Love you so much, Brian. Thank you for joining me. That was very eye opening. I need some time to digest this. I think their numbers are too big for me to. It's
Yeah.
even gone beyond my optimism that I need
Okay.
to sit back and absorb it. Thank you, Brian.
Thank
Appreciate you.
you.